Hey guys, so today in this video I'm going to be talking about balance and how it relates to health. So the first important aspect is to break down health. So of course you have mental and you have physical health, and then we could start with the physical health since that's the simpler one. So with physical health, I would say there's two parts to it. There's like the fitness, like the physical fitness, and also the diet. So those are like the two main ones. And balance is all about recycling. So basically what I mean by that is to maintain balance, you're always having a flow of energy, especially with biological life. Biological life is like a rock that has energy flowing through it. It's basically like a light bulb. So because biological life is like it's like a vessel for like through which change happens, with through which energy courses through it. So because biological life has is it like it was very consistently uses like a flow of energy, and so because of that it's a lot more likely to um, like get changed by that flow of energy. Of course, even if something doesn't, like a rock doesn't usually have, I mean technically a rock could still have energy flowing through it. I guess it's just the rock, the rock is already like, at least in biological terms, like dead, and whether energy is flowing through or not, it's still going to be a rock. Whereas a biological life will be dead if the energy stops flowing through. But the general idea is that because you have that energy flowing through, you basically have more likelihood for change. And because you have more likelihood for change, you want that change to be circular. You want that change to recycle, to go back to a balanced state. Because if it just keeps changing and changing and changing and changing, then eventually the form completely changes. So you go from a living biological form, like life form, to a dead one. Or to, I mean, you could have evolution, or or just a very unhealthy, right? We're talking about health, so like a very unhealthy state. So this the energy going through you, right? You want to make sure that you're able to kind of get that circularity, that recycling to it. This way you keep the form. You just keep going back to, like it's kind of like you circle around a form. You're going to still have a range. You're going to have a range of variation, but you're minimizing the range of variation. And that's the goal. The goal is to minimize the variation because biological life is not evolved to deal with vast amounts of variation. Um, and so that goes for the physical health. So of course the diet, you need to like it's good to have a I mean you just want to eat the types of things that um will give you a good variation in your body weight and your like minerals and stuff. I mean, I don't know like a ton about like diet or physical health, so I'm not gonna pretend like I know that, but it's just how that applies to the physical aspect. And of course, the physical aspect is a more high energy aspect because it's all about the mass, right? And so, for instance, a lot of weight, like a lot of the weight, like mass is energy, right? So mass, equals MC squared. So because of that, it's a very high energy, um, yeah, like a very high energy um, aspect of health compared to mental health. And so that's why, like, those athletes who compete at a very high level have to eat like a ton of calories to maintain their body weight. Um, so it's also very high energy, right? So in terms of like calories burnt, so of course it could also be stored energy. So like if you eat a lot, you store the energy. So it could be potential or kinetic energy. And the same goes for mental. You also have that potential energy like the memory, and the kinetic energy like the activity in the brain. But I'd say, yeah, like physical health is a lot more high energy. So you're burning a lot more calories, or you're storing a lot more calories through the food. And that food, usually you have the cycles. So, right, going back to the recycling, you have the cycle, the recycling of day and night. So day and night, usually people sleep during night to restore their energy and the healing. So like when you exercise, what you're doing is you're like tearing your muscles. You're kind of like destroying them a little bit, and then your body heals them back up after you take a break for a long enough period of time, and you let the muscles heal. So if you don't let the muscles heal, they're just gonna completely get like, yeah, just like completely damaged. So it's that same idea of you want to recycle the health, right? So so that goes for like the fitness, right? And then as for the diet is all about calories mostly. So you're trying to balance your calories and your minerals. So like your vitamin D, vitamin C's, A, B, C, D, and all the other things like potassium, magnesium, iron, you get it. So, of course, there's the ones that are most important, but the idea is you always want them to be balanced, to be stabilized. You don't want them like some things are bad at, well, I mean, all things are all like probably all of this stuff is going to be bad at a certain point. Yeah, it's all going to be bad at a certain point if you have too much, but some things are like more like more maybe like easier to um, get like too high. So like in society sometimes you hear like the person has high cholesterol or high blood pressure, things like that. And of course, blood pressure is not really related to diet as much, but anyway, it's related to the physical health. So yeah, um, or like high sugar, like diabetes. So or it could be low blood sugar levels. So either way, the point is you want to have that balance. And then the same goes for the mental health. So the mental health is like the sleep. So that's a big aspect. Rewiring the brain, so the memory. So again, the brain is just like a muscle too. You're gonna have it like get kind of like tears, right? From the injury of like, I mean, I don't know, but I would assume that's like a sort of thing. I mean, I'll have to do my research on that, but it wouldn't be surprising if like like if you don't sleep at all, right, it kind of the brain stops working that well. And it's probably kind of similar to like tearing of muscle. You need to heal the brain by sleeping. Um, and of course, the memory too. The memory is super important. That's another thing that gets like um, worked on through sleep. What are other aspects? So, I mean, the mental health is like the potential and the kinetic energy, if you just want to look at it from that perspective. So, the potential is like the memory, kinetic energy is like the activity. So, like, another aspect is like the dopamine. So, like, the dopamine and just the different neurotransmitters, just your energy level. You want your energy level to be balanced with all those different neurotransmitters. So sometimes, like, for instance, if the person is like super energized, maybe like a little too much, then what happens is it's like an imbalance. And, there's all sorts of problems like a burnout. Burnout is too much exertion and not enough recovery. Then you could have too little, so you could have like depression slash just sluggishness, where you're like too inactive. You're not doing enough exercise and not enough like mental exercise too. Like I think like there's dementia and some of those illnesses of the brain. A lot of the time they become more likely the less you exercise your brain as you get older. So that's another relation. And of course, the brain is a muscle, so the more you exercise it, the stronger it gets. But anyway, so yeah, so that's just kind of some examples of how balance relates to your health, and like the two common aspects of like problems is the burnout or like getting into like a paralysis mode slash depression mode where you lose your momentum. So you lose momentum because you're just too low, like it's a low momentum, or you just, I guess one is like a low momentum, and the other is just you completely like break down and just completely lose your momentum through like some sort of burnout. Um, And then there's also like you could visualize it on a graph. So of course, completely trying to like maximize your health, be like the healthiest person, physically and mentally. I mean, they'll give you benefits, but trying like super hard to be perfectionist about your mental and physical health is going to, in a way, like it's going to use up a lot of your time, and it's not going to give you that much in return because of that. Now it's better than being like super unhealthy, I would say, but I think usually there's like a range where it's going to help you mostly, and then it starts to stop helping you, and the same way. So yeah, so like you're super unhealthy, then it's gonna have usually way worse effects. But I guess technically, I don't know. I guess I mean yeah. So basically, it's the mental and the physical health, um, and then how much. So the first part of the graph, it'd be like barely any effort in terms of mental and physical health. And so that'd be like super duper unhealthy, like crazy unhealthy. And then, of course, you'd have the other end of the spectrum, which is like extreme amount of effort. Now, as long as you maintain the balance, see, it's all about the balance. If you're able to maintain the balance, it might not be super problematic, even if you're doing it at extreme levels, like extreme fitness or extreme mental exercise. It might not be, and like little sleep, it might not be problematic because as long as you're like fairly balanced. But once as you start losing that balance, it starts. So I guess it's like those bell curves. So I guess you could say in a way like the bell curve starts going down right on the two sides. So the balance is like towards the center. Like the perfect balance is the center of the bell curve. And one mode is you just overexert. So you tip over the balance. Another one you don't, you actually fall below the balance. So you go over the balance or you go below the balance of like good. So one is like healthy, but maybe like too much exertion. Another one's just like unhealthy and too little exertion, I guess. So, but yeah, so I would say, yeah, it's not like it's super. I mean, I guess it's kind of like it's not. Yeah, like you can't. It's just the idea of perfection. You can't like um yeah, like it's balance. The whole idea of balance is it's basically impossible to get perfection. There's always some sacrifices. So there's always sacrifices in balance, and that's just inherent in the system. So like it's like you can't maximize both your health and your mental and your physical capability. You're gonna have to choose one, or you just have average of both. And it's same with the health of both. Like if you want to be like very healthy in fitness, then you're going to be less healthy um, mentally, and if compared to like the best, or you want to be very healthy mentally, but you'll be less healthy physically. And of course, there's like a you know the best, like if you want to just the best average, then usually it's maybe like a good balance between the two where they stop having too many consequences, like detrimental consequences. But the point is, yeah, like because it's balanced, you can't be perfect, right? That's the whole idea of balance is sacrifices. So when it comes to health, I think a lot of time, people want to maximize their value, and they're like, oh, I'm going to sleep very little, or um, maybe some other stuff like they want to be um, like super healthy, like super duper healthy with a diet, or super duper fit. Like at a certain point, the value per effort put in starts to decrease, and then it even goes like to being hurtful instead of beneficial. So, um, but yeah, so I think that's like just like an important thing to take note of in the health. I mean, I don't know. I think most people know that stuff, but I don't know. I just um yeah, just like relating it specifically to the balance aspect, and I guess yeah, like the idea of the sacrifices is the most important part because you have to figure out what it is that you like want to get out of your health. Is it the mental? Is it the physical? Is it a little bit of both? Of course, usually both of them are interrelated. So, the physical helps the mental because the brain is like, is fed by the physical body and what else? And also like your physical health oftentimes will impact your brain health and vice versa. Your brain health will often impact your physical health because your brain is like the control center of the body. So I'd say like usually if you neglect either of them like too much, then you start to get like serious problems. So usually you want to be like pretty balanced. It's like it's like for instance some other things like of course like because balance is the state of things, and of course you could say like balanced for something, right? But in general, like you don't always um yeah, it's not like it's necessarily always like super like maybe one aspect of balance. Like, like recycling is just recycling the state of things. So, but I guess because of evolution, right? Evolution, we have a short variation, right? And so because of that short variation, we can't um, go too far outside of what the body is used to. And so because of that, the body is used to being balanced more so, yeah, like more balanced with both the physical and the mental. The body is not used to having more of like an imbalance between the two. Um, like I bet there's some other species that are um, yeah, that are like more used to like an imbalance between the two. Like maybe they're super physical and less mentally capable. There's some that are super, capable mentally but less physically, for different species. So I think it's just that balance and the evolution and that idea of the variation um, that is able, yeah, the body is able to sustain um, while still being alive, like still being livable for the individual species. So yeah, like I would say that because of that, because we're used to having quite a bit of balance between the two, like mental and physical, we're not like used to being able to just. I mean, you can do it. Like you can probably, yeah, like you can totally like be imbalanced in the two, but it's just that eventually it's going to start having like serious consequences. Um, yeah, like some, yeah. So like, of course, I would say, um, that like for instance, technology is something that's like pretty new. So actually, like our standards for mental versus physical are very different. Like I'd say that our standards for mental capability are much higher than they need to be, at least in terms of health, right? So, like, you don't need to be super duper smart to be healthy, but I would say that, like, just based off of our evolutionary history, as Homo sapiens, we definitely have a lot more of like a physical, um, we have a history of being a lot more physical compared to what we are right now. Um, and of course, like maybe like extreme sports people are arguably like maybe slightly uh yeah, I mean I guess it depends, but like usually they're probably like healthier than the average like hunter gatherer. But and it's not like way higher, whereas like with technology and education we've like greatly increased the mental capability, at least in terms of like knowledge and Yeah, and like just in general, of course, there's like different types of intelligence. There's like physical intelligence. There's like intuitive intelligence versus like maybe like more knowledge and like memory, or like calculation. So, I mean, honestly, like actually, hunter gatherers were really smart, but I'm not sure. I don't know. It'd be interesting to like compare the two, but I guess in general, I would say, yeah, like the average person nowadays, like just the average person is much less, yeah, much less healthy physically compared to our ancestors, compared to the mental aspect. I think mentally, it's not. I mean, of course, there's like all the problems with like maybe like like mentally like depressed or anxious, like anxiety in society, or maybe meaninglessness in society. But well, so yeah, I don't know. I guess maybe I would just say, yeah, maybe they are pretty balanced. But I guess, yeah, you could kind of see how these ideas, you could like try to play with the ideas in your head about how we relate to our ancestors, and how the two balance out, like the physical and the mental, and how they relate to our our past, um, our past tendency, because it's it's evolution. So the body is most, like, the brain is pretty plastic in terms of like learning and that type of stuff. And I would say, like, the body, it can also adapt like a decent amount, but past a certain point, it stops being able to do it so effectively. So I think, it's like that variation, right? Like within the variation, it's not a problem, but then once you start going too far out, it starts to become a serious problem. So I'd say like that evolutionary variation that we've gotten used to is basically that balance, and trying to understand what our evolutionary capabilities were, and our evolutionary balance between the two, physical and mental, is helpful in trying to understand maybe like what's most like what's most ideal for like human health, both mentally and physically. But anyway, so I think I'll just wrap it up there. Hope you like the video, guys. And if you want to see more videos like this, I post them every day. Oh, sorry, yeah, every day, and you could just go check them out. Anyway, so I'll see you next time, guys.